the adolescent brain is kind of developing that emotional center for the first time. And that's happening in the subconscious. That's why we don't know what's going on. Okay. So Charlie says he doesn't really understand where the subconscious is. And that's because you don't know where the subconscious is. You don't know what it's thinking. It just inherently happens. Like it's the part of your brain that tells you not to touch a hot stove anymore after you've learned it one time, or to drink water when you have a headache, or that when you're thirsty, you drink water. That's what you know you should go and get. Those are all things that can't be taught to you directly. They kind of get taught to you and they stay in your brain so that they don't get taught over and over and over again. So that TV is aimed at his subconscious. It's aimed at that part that you just kind of start remembering not to touch a hot stove. You remember weird things like not to eat before an operation, like we talked about the other day. Does that make sense? No problem. All right. You guys ready? Okay. So, April 9th, tonight after work, Miss Kinnian was at the laboratory. She looked like she was glad to see me, but scared. I told her, "Don't worry, Miss Kinnian. I'm not smart yet," and she laughed. She said, "I have confidence in you, Charlie, the way you struggled so hard to read and write better than all the others. At worst, you will have it a little while, and you're doing something for science." We are reading a very hard book. I never read such a hard book before. It's called Robinson Crusoe, about a man who gets marooned on a desert island. He's smart and figures out all kinds of things so he can have a house and food, and he's a good swimmer. Only I feel sorry because he's all alone and has no friends. But I think there must be somebody else on the island because there's a picture with his funny umbrella looking at footprints. I hope he finds a friend and not be lonely. So there's a little summary, a little animated summary of Robinson Crusoe because I know most of you probably haven't read it. It is about somebody being on a deserted island and he has to learn how to survive. It goes through a summary so that you can kind of understand what Charlie might be looking at himself. Of even though he's around people, he may not know it, and he may still feel very lonely. Okay, so it's very relevant to what Charlie is feeling also. All right. Um, April 10th, Miss Kinnian teaches me to spell better. She says, "Look at a word and close your eyes and say it over and over until you remember. I have lots of trouble, and through that, you say, I'm sorry, I have lots of trouble with through. That you say through and enough and tough, that you don't say anew and to." So he's noticing the spelling is different. You have to say enough and tough. That's how I used to write it before I started to get smart. I'm confused, but Miss Kinnian says there's no reason in spelling. April 14th. Finish Robinson Crusoe. I want to find out more and about what happens to him, but Miss Kinnian says that's all there is. Why? Miss Kinnian says I'm learning fast. She read some of the progress reports, and she looked at me kind of funny. She says I'm a fine person, and I'll show them all. I asked her why. She said, never mind, but I shouldn't feel bad if I find out that everybody isn't nice like I think. She said, for a person who God gave so little to, you've done more than a lot of people with brains they never even used. I said, all my friends are smart people, but they're good. They like me, and they never did anything that wasn't nice. Then she said she got something in her eye, and she had to run out to the ladies' room. Did she actually get something in her eye? What do you guys think? Did she actually? What is she upset about? What do you guys think is upsetting Miss Kinnian about the progress report she was reading? She says that you're a fine person, you'll show them all. She said, never mind, but I shouldn't feel bad if I find out that everybody isn't nice like I think. Who's she referring to? Remember that she's reading these progress reports just like we're doing. And suddenly she says, you may find out that not everyone's nice like you think. Yeah, she's talking about her friends, and it's Joe Carp and Frank Riley. She's reading about those two and finding out that they're not as. She's finding out that Charlie doesn't understand they're not nice to him. Okay, so we're going to go through some new things that Charlie's learning, and then you'll have a couple of you'll have an ACE response, and then one quick question to answer. So, April 16th. Today I learned the comma. This is a comma, a period with a tail. Miss Kinnian says it's important because it makes writing better. She said somebody could lose a lot of money if a comma isn't in the right place. I don't have any money, and I don't see how a comma keeps you from losing it. But she says everybody uses commas, so I'll use them too. I used the comma wrong. It's punctuation. Miss Kinnian told me to look up long words in the dictionary to learn to spell them. I said, what's the difference if you can read it anyway? She said, it's part of your education. So now on, I'll look up all the words, and I'm not sure how to spell. It takes a long time to write that way, but I think I'm remembering. I only have to look up once, and after that, I get it right. Anyway, that's how come I got the word punctuation right. It's that way in the dictionary. Miss Kinnian says a period is punctuation too, and there are lots of other marks to learn. I told her I thought all the periods had to have tails, but she said no. You got to mix them up. She showed me how to mix them up, and now I can mix up all kinds of punctuation in my writing. There are lots of rules to learn, but I'm getting them in my head. One thing I like about Miss Kinnian, that's the way it goes in a business letter if I ever go into business, is she always gives me a reason when I ask. She's a genius. I wish I could be smart like her. Punctuation is fun. All right. So you have one H response. It's talking again about the area where we talked about Ms. Kinnian reading the progress reports, and then just a question about what that punctuation is teaching us. Do you guys have any questions before I turn you loose? Okay. All right. Well, you guys have great days. Be good people. If not, take it.